This story reminds us that no matter how strong the storm, you have the power to rebuild. Pain can become art, struggle can become strength, and the road you walk today can inspire others to walk tomorrow. Never let the world decide who you are. Write your own ending. Stay with us till the end. Elsa's life had always been simple but filled with quiet happiness. She lived in a small coastal town where the sound of waves was the rhythm of every day, and the sight of golden sunsets was her favorite escape. Her father was a kind fisherman who would return each evening with a smile, carrying fresh fish, while her mother sold vegetables in the local market to keep the family going. Elsa, a bright and artistic soul, loved painting on old wooden boards, seashells, and even the walls of their hut. She dreamed of one day becoming a real artist, of showing her work to the world beyond the shoreline. But one night, everything she knew was torn apart. A violent storm swept through the town, shaking the very ground beneath them. Winds roared like wild beasts, waves crashed mercilessly against their little home, and Elsa clung to her mother as rain poured through the roof. By morning, the once lively town lay in ruins, broken boats scattered along the shore, roofs torn away, and streets filled with mud and debris. Their family's boat, the only source of income, was gone, swallowed by the sea. Worse yet, Elsa's father had been injured during the storm while trying to save the boat. The doctor said he would not be able to work for months. In a single night, their lives had been shattered. The girl who once painted colorful sunsets now sat outside their ruined hut, staring at the gray sky. Her heart ached with fear, not for herself, but for her family's survival. They had little food, no savings, and no way to earn a living. That night, Elsa made a silent promise to herself as she sat by her father's side: she would not let the storm decide their future. She would find a way to bring light back into their home, even if it meant fighting against the tide itself. The morning after the storm, Elsa woke up with a new resolve. Their small hut still stood, though barely, and her father lay weak but alive. That was enough for her to fight. She gathered what little was left, a few broken nets, some scattered shells, and the old paintbrush she had kept safe under her bed. Her mother was worried about how they would eat, but Elsa told her softly, "We will survive. I will find a way." That very day, Elsa walked to the market with a basket of seashells she had painted with bright colors, turning them into tiny works of art. At first, passers-by barely looked at her. She sat on the ground under the hot sun for hours, watching others sell fruits and fish while she earned nothing. But Elsa refused to go home empty-handed. She tried again the next day, and this time, a tourist noticed her work, bought 3 shells, and smiled at her effort. That small sale lit a spark of hope in Elsa's heart. Soon, she began spending hours collecting shells by the shore, cleaning and painting them late into the night. Some days she returned home with enough money to buy rice, other days with nothing at all, but she never stopped trying. Her fingers grew rough from working with shells, her feet calloused from walking miles to the market, but she kept reminding herself of her promise. Each painted shell felt like a step toward a better life, each sale like a small victory against the storm that tried to break them. At night, when the market was quiet and her family slept, Elsa would sit near the dim oil lamp and paint until her eyelids grew heavy, transforming her pain into vibrant colors. Little by little, she started earning enough to buy more paint, better brushes, and a small notebook where she sketched ideas for bigger pieces. Though life was still hard, Elsa felt a new sense of strength. She was no longer waiting for someone to save her family. She was becoming their hope, piece by piece, just like the shells she turned into art. As months passed, Elsa's small shell paintings began to bring in enough money to keep her family afloat, but her journey was far from easy. The whispers in the village grew louder. Neighbors and distant relatives began suggesting that Elsa should stop wasting time with childish hobbies, and get married early to reduce the family's burden. "A girl's future is her husband's home," one of the elders said, shaking his head at her mother. "What good will painting do when there's no food on the table?" Elsa heard every word, and each one felt like a stone being thrown at her dreams. For the first time since the storm, she felt doubt creeping in. Would giving up be easier? Would marrying young solve all their problems? That night, she sat quietly by the shore, staring at the dark waves, her heart heavy with confusion. But as she looked at the horizon, Elsa remembered the promise she had made to herself that she would not let the storm decide her future. She wiped her tears and chose to fight harder. Using a borrowed phone from a kind neighbor, Elsa took photos of her painted shells and posted them on social media. At first, no one noticed. Days turned into weeks with no response, but Elsa kept uploading her work, believing that someone, somewhere, would see her efforts. Then, one day, a traveler passing through the town bought a few of her shells and shared them online with a heartfelt caption about the girl who turned her pain into art. Within days, Elsa's page began to receive attention. Small orders started coming in from nearby towns and cities. The same people who once mocked her now looked at her with curiosity, some even with respect. Elsa felt a quiet power grow within her. She was no longer just surviving, she was beginning to be seen. Years passed, and Elsa's determination turned into something extraordinary. Her small social media page grew into a platform where hundreds of people admired her art. Orders started coming from across the country, and with every sale, Elsa saved a little more until she could afford better tools, larger canvases, and eventually a small studio space in town. What began as painted seashells grew into full-sized paintings that told stories of her village, the storm, and her fight to rise above despair. One day, Elsa was invited to exhibit her work at a city art gallery, an invitation she once thought impossible. Nervous but proud, she traveled to the city with her family, her father now healthy and walking beside her. The gallery was filled with people marveling at her paintings, crashing waves, broken boats, sunsets glowing with hope. Journalists wrote about her as the girl who turned tragedy into art, and Elsa's story began to inspire others far beyond her small town. She sold enough paintings at the exhibition to rebuild her family's hut into a proper house and buy her father a new fishing boat. But Elsa didn't stop there. She used part of her earnings to create free art workshops for children in her village, giving them brushes, colors, and the freedom to dream beyond their circumstances. On the day of her first workshop, as she watched a group of kids laugh and paint by the shore, Elsa felt her heart swell with joy. The girl who once sat crying under a stormy sky was now helping others find their light. As the sun set that evening, Elsa stood quietly, looking at the horizon, the same horizon that once seemed to mock her. This time, she smiled. The storm had tried to break her, but instead, it had made her stronger.